Hi everyone, Redneck Computer Geek here, and this is our John Deere LA105. It's the machine that we're building an ice racer out of over on RCG Racing. So today we're going to be pulling the transmission out of this and showing you how to go and pull one of these with just basic tools and stuff. And then we're going to be pulling it apart and putting new fluid in it. So here's our John Deere number, if you'd like to see that. And our spicer down here is a 4360 spicer. And we're going to be taking this out in order to see what's going on and going from there. So the first thing we got to do is get these tires off of here. And then from there we'll get in underneath and talk about what we got to do to get it free. I wanted to take 5 seconds to show this tool that I made a while ago. It's triangular, and it's got this little flat hook piece that I made on the end of it. And that's for these stupid things, so that you can pull in, and then we'll see if I can do this on camera. You pull up and out, and there it goes. And these things, when they're cold, they really suck to take off. So the other thing that I'll tell you is if you heat this up with a heat gun, it'll pull right off nice and easy. If they're below about 40 degrees, they turn into really hard rubber. It's not as important on machines like this, but when you're dealing with older machines, sometimes the transmissions are actually offset to one side or the other. And this is different depending on what side it goes to. So what I like to do is pull the key and pull this off and set it in the corresponding tire that it came off of, and set the tires lining up with the side of the machine that they came off of. That way, if you're dealing with an older machine that has an offset transaxle, that you don't end up messing it up and having to sit there swapping things back and forth again. This is a not good sign. And as you can see, there's a bunch of sludge and buildup there and stuff. So what's most likely happened is on the inside of here, there's a little tiny axle seal that's in there. And when they get worn out, they tend to leak out through the side and build up sludge right here on this one. You can see the sludge buildup right there. So when we pull that apart, we'll make sure to go and check the driver's side and make sure that that doesn't need replacing. Or we'll just run it because it's an ice racer. Luckily, our parking brake actually still works on this thing. So what you want to do is push that down and then lift up this parking brake and lock it into place. That way you can get in underneath here and work. We've got our battery-powered 24-volt spotlight. I really love these. They're worth picking up. I'll make sure to post a link down in the description. And as you can see, there's no cord, there's no whatever. And they also have a flashing function in them for emergencies. So at this point, we'll get in underneath and show you everything. Alright, so we've got the assistant here. And we're working on getting this undone. We're going to go over what needs to happen and then we're going to do it. So with the parking brake down, you can get your belt off of here. And you've got to get it around the detent that's on the back. And if you push up on what is the driver's side of the machine, you can get it to come off that way. Now, this is on the outside of the pulley. So as long as you're careful dropping it, you won't hit this and you won't have to remove it if you're leaving this stock. I'm actually putting a smaller pulley on to make this go faster for ice racing, but that's neither here nor there. What you're going to do is undo this. This here is easy to strip out on these, so you want to leave this if you can. You want to undo this here. Oops, it just went. Aye, there it is. The stupid thing flew quite a distance. There we are. So that's what that little weird clip looks like. Thanks, John Deere. So this one here ended up being a 10 millimeter. So we're going to get this one out of here. And this one and this one, it turned out were actually 13 millimeter. So John Deere went through and changed all of these to something other than what they usually are. There we go. Now we'll do the other side. So what you probably can't see that I've figured out over the years is that if you have steel-toed boots on, you can wedge your toe up in underneath just to hold it up in the frame. That way it doesn't come smashing down. And the other thing is you want to make sure to do the front ones first, because if it leverages on those, it'll A, bend the mount, or B, it'll snap it right out of the case. So at this point, we should just have one more bolt to go. And drop this thing down. There we are. Now if I reach in underneath and I hold it like that, I can drop my foot out. There we are. Now we can undo the connection for the shifter because I forgot it while I was making this video. There we go.
Recording.
So this is what I forgot. It turns out it's an 11 on top and a 13 underneath. Now if we lift it up and jiggle it around, there we go. All done. I get asked all the time about the cat door in my garage and why I put it where I did. That is where my hose reel comes down through, which goes through the cat door, which means that you can come outside and blast stuff without destroying and dirtying up your entire garage. Now I know some of you are going to say that I should have disconnected it here, but the reason why I didn't do it that way is because this is where the end of our metric escapade is and our English starts. So this going into this is a 3/8. This to get to the ball detents is a 5/16. And if you're doing more than a fluid change, you're going to have to go and take this off, which is 1/2 inch. And all of these Torx bits around the outside are T30s. So that's why we undid it here. And we need to make sure that we know which angle this went on, because if this is a 4-sided connection, then we've got this direction, this direction, this direction, and this direction that it's possible for it to mount. So in some way, you want to take a picture or something like that of where it is. Now, at this point, I'm going to take my snap ring pliers. I'm going to get the snap ring off of here. Now, if you have a pulley that is utterly rusted on, I'll include a video in the description that will have the 5-minute fix in order to get this off. Hopefully this one's just going to pull right off when we get the snap ring undone. We'll see. Might have to thump it once or twice. If you are going to thump one of these, I do recommend using a punch, but first pre-drill a small little punch spot right here. The older Transaxles, come with a punch spot already drilled in. The newer ones are flat top and do not have one. So we'll see if that'll come right off. Alright, a few frustrating moments later. There we go. So there's that. That came off. And what was happening is right there was catching. It's all rusted up and it had rust welded itself in. So we just had to go and get it driven past there. For the Q&A people, this is a neutral safety switch. You can unscrew this and it goes into the case and you could potentially fill the case from there. But I want to see what condition everything is inside this case, which is why we're popping it open today. This is where the ball retentions are for the shifter. That's where the shifter comes out. So we had to take that stuff off. We had to take the pulley off because there is one there and one there. And the reason why we blasted it out with air is because there's 4 in each of these. And they're always corroded. So as it is right now, we're going to grab some PB Blaster or penetrant of your choice. And we're going to spray down all of this. And by the time you see this back, it'll be tomorrow. And we're back. As you can see, it's darker because it's had an entire night for the PB Blaster to go and soak in. Now we're going to see if we can get this thing popped open. Now one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to pull this ball detent out of here and see if we can manage to go and get the springs to come up, so we got one less thing to have to go hunting for later. So that comes out and we can just pry up on it just a little and you'll hear the gasket sealer that was put in there. Okay, so we managed to get both springs out. So at the bottom of the 2 of these, there are ball bearings. Sometimes they will fish up out. Most of the time, nope. You're going to have to go and pull them out after you pop the case. So you're going to be watching for the 2 of these. The other reason that I do this is because a lot of times people will lose one or the other. And you won't know that there's one missing. So you'll spend hours cleaning the case trying to find the one that's missing. I can see right now that both are actually in here. And I can actually tap on it right there and right there. So we're going to pull those out later. As we said before, we've got a T30 Torx. Now, I personally prefer to work around the case, do the 2 centers, and then do the 2 axles. There's no rhyme or reason for it other than what I find is that this outer area tends to snap off the easiest, so I like to do it last. And these are definitely in there, so we're going to upgrade to a bigger Ooga-Dooga. Now, one thing I want to point out while we're here is that these ones tend to rust out, and occasionally what'll happen is they'll snap the head off. What you do at that point when you're putting this back together is you drill all the way through, and you just put a bolt with a nut right through the case. But here's to hoping to whatever deity of your choice. There's one. And there's 2. Alright, so now what I'll do is the 1, 2, and the 3 back here. Then we'll do our axles. in the background here, I've ended up setting a compendium of flathead screwdrivers. Now, there's a bunch of different ways to do this, and there's a bunch of different ways I would recommend not doing it. One of the ways that floats around the internet and every once in a while comes back around is to set this end over the end of something and hit up on the axle in order to pop the side of the case. Do not do that. Bad, bad, bad idea. And you can crack off this entire section by doing it. Don't do that. What you want to do is away from anywhere that has bushings. You want to stay away from these spots that have bushings. You want to start on an axle point where you've got a reinforcement of some sort, and that's where you want to impact the screwdriver in, and listen for when the RTV sealant lets loose. So we're just going to carefully impact this in just a little bit and keep going back and forth. And usually you'll find a spot that has a little bit of a divot to start with. Usually there's either a casting failure, or on some better transaxles and not one of these junky little spicers, they're actually casted deliberately into it. Now, depending on the spicer, there may or may not be a seal inside the end of this little axle housing. So stay away from that so you don't ruin that seal. There it goes. That just popped. So at this point, everything across here is loose, but I can still feel that the sealant is holding on this side. So we're just going to pry it around just gently to make sure. And now we're going to come to the front and see if we can get that to pop. You want to use a really thin screwdriver for this. Now, what's going to happen is most of the time the input here for shifting gears is going to be rusted around here and it's going to be stuck. So what you do is you take a square shaft screwdriver like this, you lift up this case, you set it into that corner, and you just give it a tap, like so. Now if I pick it up just a little, I can give it another tap. Like that. Now I should be able to pick up, tap it the rest of the way out. That one's just plain not happy with life. Alright, we're going to pick this up and we're going to pull that shift fork out because it doesn't want to play fair. So we're going to pull up and we're going to hold that a little sideways. There we go. So there's that shift fork that didn't want to come out. You can see right there. So there's a nub there and a nub there that go into the shifting pattern. So now we're going to go and knock that the rest of the way out. Now, I'm not going to bother with the cleanup and whatever part. If you've seen enough of these, you know how that works. But I'll give you the 5-second version. The 5-second version is: you take all of this, you lift it out, you set it aside on some rags, you clean out all of this, then you take all this gasket and you clean all this gasket off on the outside. I usually go and use scuff pad, the 3-inch little wheels that go on die grinders. You go around the whole thing, you put in your fluid of choice. This originally had just a tube of grease in it. I'm going to be putting in automatic transmission fluid and some differential gear oil in it. And then you put a little bit of gasket sealant, RTV, on the outside, and then you put it back together. You let it sit. You come back 12 hours or so later. In order to make sure everything seals up and dries up good, you put it back in the tractor, which is where you'll see this start next. So what John and I are going to do is we're going to show you how we lift these into the back of a mower, and it's a lot easier if you have two people. You also can do this by yourself, and I've done it for years by myself by using a scissor jack in underneath this. You set it up on the scissor jack and then you slowly bring it up. But it's way easier with two people, and I'll show you why. So these go up from the bottom. And of course I can't manage to go and hit the hole, let alone two holes. There we go. So the reason why this is easier with two people is that you need to be able to lift it from both sides like this. John, your hand there. You need to be able to lift it from both sides like this. But in order to get it in, set it back down, you have to get your brake bar through here while you have your shifter bar up here and then back into this bar from the top. So this shifter bar, if you have the chance, you can zip tie it up to something, pull it up out of the way. But this brake bar, you need to be able to get it in here while you're lifting it. So the transmission actually comes up at an angle slightly around that bar. Go ahead and lift. And then you put the two rear bolts, lift. You put the two rear bolts in, and whoever is the stronger of the two people puts a hand underneath and then puts the two nuts on. So we're going to try and put it into the tractor now and go from there. Alright, never goes right when you try and do it on video. Take one. So we've got our brake lever, brake rod lined up, and we've got our shifter right here. We're going to go and stick up inside this frame rail because I figured out it would stay there. And we're going to go ahead and lift this thing up. I've already preemptively put the nuts for my side right there next to the holes. Okay, John, you ready?
Yep.
Okay, up. Yep.
Oh.
Okay, did you get yours lined up?
Nope. Not yet. Come on.
Okay, I got mine started.
Almost done.
You go ahead and do yours.
There's one.
Now, one note about the front bolt is that it's a self-tap. So you're going to start it, but do not screw these in until last because they're meant to be a pivot. So you're just going to start it in and get it hand tight down in there, but leave it so that the front can pivot. Once you've got these sides starting to go on, you can tighten these up.
Did it?
Yep. Help if I put that the right direction. And I do the front one first out of habit. It just seems to work best for me. And like I said, leave this one alone, do the other side, and then go and tighten these.
Recording!